Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses for another episode of 20-Minute Rivals. And today I am absolutely delighted to say that we are joined by Benjamin Bloom. Benjamin, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I love the 20-minute rivals concept. And you know the thing they do in like the House of Lords, the filibustering, where you just
Yes.
talk for the whole 20 minutes. This is my plan, and then it ends and Ipswich have won the league, right? Is that what we're doing?
That'll work. That's fine. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. No, it's good to get you on. I mean, this is our third season together, Leicester and Ipswich, third
Right,
season in a
yeah.
row. So let's see if it's as successful as 2 years ago. I'm not sure it will be for Leicester, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. I want to start though, Ben, by just talking about Ipswich and you know, just like Leicester, relegated from the Premier League. Going into this summer transfer window, what's the movement been like with Ipswich so far? Because I haven't seen too much, so I'm interested to see what's going on.
Yeah, so the comparisons are going to be made with Ipswich and Leicester and Southampton, aren't they? And it's easy to forget the direction of travel. You have to wind back a couple of years to explain where all the clubs are right now, because I think Leicester was one of them was 8 years and one of them was 11 years. I think Southampton were 11 years and Leicester were 8 years. I may have got that the wrong way round up in the Premier League. Obviously, Ipswich went bang, bang, League One Championship. So the infrastructure at the likes of Leicester and Southampton has been grown over the Premier League years, and they're used to paying, the big salaries and, all that type of stuff. So where Ipswich are is a little bit different. They never reached that kind of level.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of people kind of unkindly said, oh, they've built a championship team for next season in the Premier League. There's probably some truth, and maybe as an Ipswich fan, you took it a bit personally when people said that. But when you look at a long-tailed strategy, that's what they've had to do. So there's going to be, like, obviously Liam Delap's gone, and Amari Hutchinson, if he's anywhere near Ipswich on August the 8th, I'll be very, very surprised. But you're probably like this as a Leicester fan. You kind of understand the divide now between the Premier League and the Championship, and you just
Yeah.
know that the players who are capable of playing in the Premier League now are just not really going to stay at your club when you're relegated. It just doesn't happen anymore. So the idea is that it's built around players that came in: Smodix, Jack Clark, Jaden Philogene, Dara O'Shea, Jacob Greaves, Alex Palmer, all these players that came in who may be Premier League level one day, but maybe aren't right now. And then add in bits and bobs to that. You'll get Ipswich fans saying, "Oh, it's too slow. Not enough happening." And it's difficult to get your head around the fact that Ipswich. Do you remember Supermarket Sweep, where you just
Yes.
ran around? That was it last season, wasn't it? It's like, right, you've finally got the 100 million Premier League TV money, and we broke the transfer record every week for about, most of July.
Yeah.
So, in short, not much has happened as yet. David Button, reserve goalkeeper, but Cedric Kipre is in. That's eminently sensible. He's another, that's depth at centre back. And God, I'm going to work on this. Azor Mutasiwa is a fairly expensive central midfielder, but more needs doing.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the divide there. It's a big talking point, I think, at the moment, the divide between the Championship and the Premier League. And I mean, I know you know Joe, the Just Joe Football Show, the Leeds fan. Me and him are good friends, and we're always talking about it. And he's saying, "No, we will be the ones. We will be the ones to break that mold." But it's interesting seeing all the different strategies with regards to recruitment that teams do when they get promoted. I mean, you see Sunderland, what they're doing at the moment, which is a bit crazy. Just touching on the Premier League, we won't do it too much, but I just want to ask you, out of those three teams that did get promoted last season, who do you think is in the best stead to stay up?
Oh, crikey. I mean, as it pertains to recruitment, it was hard. I mean, you'll know way more about it than I, but with the financial issues
Yeah.
at Leicester, it was a bit of a, right, let's get some loans in and see what we can do, make a challenge, but let's not breach 5 years in a row and let's start to try and sort this out. So Leicester were a bit hamstrung, weren't they, in that respect? And it's difficult because people that don't understand particularly what's going on here will say, oh, he spent £100 million. Right? And that gets you 25 points in the Premier League at the moment. And it's like, okay, right. So what, you need to spend £200 million now? I mean, you had the Forest approach, didn't you? Which I know riles some people up, but it's like, well, fair play, you know.
Yep.
It worked, didn't it? And I've you mentioned Joe and the Leeds fans, and it's difficult for clubs like Leeds and Ipswich to accept, where you've had great historic periods. Leeds way better than Ipswich, obviously, that are now completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter that Leeds were the best team in the country in the 70s. It's more relevant that Bournemouth have just spent 3 years receiving £100 million TV money, and that puts them way ahead of Leeds or Ipswich, no matter what the hell Bobby Robson, Alf Ramsey or Don Revie ever did, or how many fans are coming in the stadium.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, but back to Ipswich, I know when Leicester lost Enzo Maresca a year ago now, there was talk of Kieran McKenna. I mean, there were a couple of teams interested. Was it Man United and Brighton, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken? Two teams that he was linked with. Are you surprised now, 12 months later, he's still at the club? Or because no one's really come in for him, as far as I'm aware, this summer? Why do you think that is?
That's a great question, because if you'd asked me that on this day last year, if we were sat here having this chat, I would have put the chances of him being at Ipswich at like 10%. Because he was the hottest manager in the country, wasn't he? Because he'd done the back-to-back promotions and kind of the sort of flag bearer for taking young coaches and, you know, out of elite clubs and putting them in. I'm not saying he's the first person to do that, but he was the guy, and he was linked with the Chelsea job, which you have to say Maresca's making a pretty good go at now as well. The big one was Brighton though, and I don't claim to be Mr. in the know, but my understanding is that had Kieran McKenna wanted to be the Brighton manager, he would be the Brighton manager now. And there's also a question of, would that have been a better career move for him? Now you see where Hertzler and where Brighton are. So I'm quite surprised over the long term. But obviously, now that moment has passed of him being... he's not the hottest manager in... You know, Maresca's hotter than him now, clearly, you know. So, you know, that moment has passed, which is quite satisfying as an Ipswich fan, because it's like, okay, keep away everybody. And the timing has worked out for Ipswich. Look, he's not going to be the Ipswich manager for forever. He's very, very good, and he's young, and I think he's a Premier League manager. We have him right now, and perhaps with the links to Spurs and Man United, if he'd been a little further down the line, you know, those jobs might have come his way. But he kind of wasn't ready, despite having been at both those clubs before. So, but look, you know, as soon as, you know, October time or whatever, when the first Premier League owner panics, he'll be linked again. And it's not, however big we think our clubs are, it's not Man United you're worrying about. It's Brentford, it's Bournemouth, Fulham, Brighton, these teams in the middle that used to be small clubs, but now, as Pep Guardiola says, have squads of incredible players and are very, very good.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I remember back a year ago, because I think Leicester fans were hoping McKenna got the Chelsea job, you know, so we didn't lose Enzo Maresca. Yeah. But I think one thing we spoke about back then was, you know, a manager could regret not taking that job. And, you know, in the McKenna situation, I'm not saying that, you know, a big job still isn't on the cards for him, of course.
Well, look, quickly, just sorry to interrupt. Roll it out. What happens if Kieran McKenna has 11 points from the first 20 games this season and Ipswich are 14th?
Yeah.
He might really regret because you know what? Because then he'll come under pressure because it'll be like you got the year one parachute payment. You should be in the top three. Where are you? Carry on. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say it's proof, right? Because he was linked to Brighton, for example, and you've seen the likes of Brentford lose their manager this summer, and they've not.
That was scary.
They've not gone for McKenna. Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah. So, but Enzo Maresca, he took the risk. Go to Chelsea, which it was a risk because you know how they operate, Chelsea. But he has done well, and who knows what's in store. Are you
surprised by that?
I don't know.
I'm a little bit. I am a little bit. I thought he was very good, but exactly what you say is Chelsea. Come on, they'll chew him up and spit him out. He's done great, hasn't he?
There's been the similar criticisms halfway through last season that Leicester fans had about maybe slightly too patient at times, and when you need a goal, maybe be a bit more direct. He is very rigid, as we know, but with the quality of player there, the money, I don't think it can come too much of a surprise. We'll see if they challenge for the Premier League next season. Who knows? But no, I mean, I wanted to ask you about the Championship and the quality of the division. I mean, when Leicester were back in there the last time with Leeds and Southampton, I think a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people said this is the toughest Championship season ever. How do you think that compares with this year, with the powerhouse, the American powerhouses, should I say, Birmingham and Wrexham coming up? Obviously, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich there as well. Coventry, I think, will be pushing for it this season, promotion. How do you think it compares this year to 2 years ago?
Well, it's fascinating when people try and say, "Oh, the toughest or the worst year," because that is so hard to judge, and it purely depends on what you're looking at. Because on the one hand, for you and me 2 years ago, yeah, it was the toughest. You're like, my God, Leicester keep winning. Southampton have just gone 23 undefeated. Leeds have won 10 on the trot and aren't conceding any goals. So I think if you distill it down, that was one of the toughest automatic promotion races. Because then if you just have a little look further down, the middle order and mid-table in the Championship has just disintegrated over the past couple of years because the teams in the middle, if you have four teams at the top, and last year it was even worse, 100, 100, 92 on pitch for Sheffield United, 90 with the deduction, that means they're beating everybody. And that's not how a league table should work. It should be that, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, they kind of win a few games against the top four, don't they? And not all of them, but the odd one. But what we've had is completely just the top four savaging the entire division and beating everybody. No mid-table, and then a weird rising tide at the bottom where we've seen Luton relegated with 49 and Birmingham relegated with 50 points. So the league table has been strange. So I wouldn't necessarily agree that the league has been tougher than ever, but I would certainly agree. I mean, you lived it. You were probably like, my God, Ipswich is like this thing that's this fly that's you just can't get them away. And 1 point in the end. And if you actually look at the way that the division finished, Ipswich and Leicester should have both got 100 points as well. When you actually look at the little tail off at the end there. So yeah, I would argue, hopefully, and you just did it. Norwich could be good this season. Coventry should continue it, shouldn't they? Middlesbrough are only ever a good season away. West Brom could work under Ryan Mason. And we do this every year. It's like, who's your top six? Right, I've got 13 teams in it, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on Leicester quickly. I mean, Leicester have had a summer of turbulence, I would call it, with, such a delay in sacking Ruud van Nistelrooy. Because of PSR, if you believe what you read, that's why we had to wait so long. We were linked with names like Gary O'Neill, Chris Wilder, Sean Dyche, Danny Roll, of course, which is a bit of a crazy situation still unfolding. But we've ended up with Martí Cifuentes. What do you make to that appointment, mate? Because I'm interested to hear what other fans think of it. I think Leicester fans, just for some context, and I'm sure you've seen, are quite positive about it, and we think it's the right direction for the club to go in. But I'm interested in your opinion on that.
Well, obviously in 23-24, well, Ipswich and Leicester were duking it out for automatic promotion. Danny Roll and Marty Cifuentes were, other than probably Kieran McKenna, the two best performing managers in the league,
Yeah.
because I said it myself many times on my channel. Oh, Wednesday and QPR are down. They're doomed. They do not have enough points to survive. The form required for them to now get out of this is something that they're not going to be able to do. Wrong. So they both did it. What would interest me, and we're going to have a little chat on my channel about Leicester where we can get your views. I reckon they would have done roll were it not for Mr. Chansiri and the escape clause. So there is this idea in my head that if they could have got that deal done, and, you know, let's be honest, they wouldn't have been able to get that past the EFL if we think there's going to be some kind of business plan, and we think the number might be 5 million quid. It just wasn't going to fly, was it? And the complete opposite has happened, where presumably they've presented this to the EFL, and there's compensation to pay, and it's like, who's going to Marty Cifuentes just go, right, screw this, I'll pay it. Let's just get this done. I want to go manage Leicester. He's very good. QPR were heroic in that first escape. I've got to admit, it was a bit streaky last season. There were times where I thought, oh, here we go, QPR are really good, and then they go on a poor run. But I mean, as you mentioned, with Enzo Maresca managing Chelsea now, and this is with all love to a wonderful club at QPR, Leicester players are better than QPR players, and Leicester's training facilities are world class, and you know it's different. And QPR is a great club, but Leicester have got, other than the balance sheet at the moment and the minutiae with the King Power, as in the ownership, not the stadium, everything else is Premier League standard. So I like it.
I was going to say, I think, that's why Leicester fans are excited. I mean, the style of football itself seems a little bit less rigid than what we had under Enzo Maresca, which is a positive, because there were quite a few fans that were starting to get a little bit frustrated with that. And of course, our playing squad, despite maybe losing Mads Hermansen or Bilal El Khanous, the core of the squad is still much better than QPR's, with all due respect. So we are excited. Ben, before we end, I want to ask you a few quick-fire questions, if it's okay. So there's some interesting ones here. So the first one, mate, who is going to win the championship this season?
A team in receipt of parachute payments next.
That's a very good answer. That's a very good answer. I
hope I'm wrong about that, by the way, because it's a rubbish answer to give every single year. But yeah, carry on. Sorry, mate.
Well, Hal from the Sheffield United way did say Ipswich, so there you go. There's one for you.
And Hal is a very studied and powerful and handsome and charismatic man, then, isn't he?
Yeah, all of the above, absolutely. I don't know if you want to answer this one. Who's finishing in the bottom three? Who would you have as your picks to go down? Even just one or two.
Sheffield Wednesday are nailed on 24th unless things change at the moment. I'm a little bit worried about Hull as well. So you can kind of throw in those two in terms of chaos. The issue down there, mate, is that, we're not going to be talking about Birmingham and Wrexham being down there, are we? That's not going to happen. Charlton have got Nathan Jones, which is a bit of a game changer. And as much as Oxford fans are going to get really annoyed because they did a great job staying up, you can see Derby and Pompey being quite good. Preston always somehow manage to finish in the middle, don't they? So it could be that someone maybe that we don't expect. I mean, you just mentioned QPR changing the manager. But they've done some all right business re-signing players, and I think the lad from Peterborough, whose name I'm forgetting right now, is a good signing on a free as well. So other than the ones with dreadful ownership and possible points deductions coming and embargoes, I'm struggling.
That's all right. Last two questions. Maybe these two will be slightly easier. Who would you have as your pick for top scorer this season in the Championship?
Am I allowed to say Sammy Smodics?
Of course. Yeah.
Regardless of who it is, pathetic last year. Nobody got 20 goals. So I need
Yeah.
to see multiple players on 20 goals. It'd be very boring though if it was Smodics or Armstrong for Southampton or someone, who'd been there. Be nice if it was a kind of young up and coming striker, but you know how the championship works, don't you?
Yeah. And final question. If you could steal one player from Leicester to come to Ipswich, who would it be?
Well, you mentioned the two everyone wants, Hermansen and El Canoes, and Ipswich has struggled in goals since Gladkey. So, yeah, Mads Hermansen.
Perfect. Thank you for your time, Ben. It's been great to have you on. Hopefully, we'll chat again as the season goes on. I know we're gonna be doing something on your channel as well. But just tell everybody if they've been living under a rock where they can find you on
Yeah,
YouTube.
so the Benjamin Bloom football channel. So we mainly cover the championship. So well worth tuning in. I am an Ipswich Town fan, but we do try and call it down the middle. And we have the great Sam Parkin, the Sky Summarise, a great EFL striker as well. He comes on and does the championship check-in podcast every week. So if you don't want to listen to me, you can listen to Sam talking sense anyway.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ben. We'll see you very soon, mate. All right.
Legend.
Cheers.